Hello and welcome to CineBolt. In our previous video, we talked about some of the best sci-fi movies of 2022. But apart from science fiction, fantasy is also one of those genres that is very popular among fans and audiences. This year's fantasy movies are all packed with epic stories, taking us into new realms that never existed, introducing us to strange magical creatures, and transporting us to fantastic worlds beyond our own. So sit back and suspend your disbelief as we count down some of the best epic fantasy movies of 2022 so far. On number 7, we have Brahmastra, Part 1, Shiva. It is a 2022 Indian fantasy action film, written and directed by Ayan Mukherjee. Beginning in ancient India, the plot centers on a group of sages in the Himalayas, who after colliding with the energy Brahm Shakti, were able to create many celestial weapons of great powers called astras. The most powerful among them, the Brahmastra, has the potential to destroy the world, but the sages were able to use their respective astras to tame the unpredictable Brahmastra, and form a secret society to protect the world from the powers of astras. The main story follows Shiva, who is an orphan with the ability to control fire. But after learning that he is an astra of great power, his calm and simple life is turned upside down. But as he tries to figure out who he really is, Shiva is unwittingly pulled into an ancient conflict, where he has to protect the Brahmastra from falling into the hands of sinister powers. The movie has a 5.6 rating on IMDb and a 69% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. On number 6, we have The School for Good and Evil. It is a 2022 fantasy drama film, based on a 2013 novel of the same name. The story starts in the village of Galvanon, and centers on two best friends, Sophie and Agatha. Sophie is a golden-haired seamstress who loves magical stories, and aspires to escape her ordinary village life, while Agatha, with her gloomy aesthetic, has the makings of a true witch. But one night, under the blood-red moon, a powerful creature transports both friends to the School for Good and Evil, where events take a drastic turn as Sophie is dropped into the School for Evil, while Agatha is dropped into the School for Good. But when a sinister and dangerous entity with unknown ties to Sophie reemerges and threatens to destroy the entire school and the world beyond, Sophie and Agatha find themselves on opposing sides of an epic battle, as they try to figure out how to preserve the balance between good and evil. If you are a fan of magical films like Harry Potter or Into the Woods, then I'd recommend you check out this movie. The film is a fun young adult fantasy, with an intriguing plot and some impressively surprising twists. The movie has a 5.8 rating on IMDb and a 66% audience's score on Rotten Tomatoes. On number 5, we have The King's Daughter. It is a 2022 action-adventure fantasy film, directed by Sean McNamara, and based on the 1997 novel, The Moon and the Sun. The main plot revolves around King Louis XIV, also known as the Sun King, who is obsessed with his own death and the future destiny of his kingdom. King Louis believes that a mermaid by the name of Fan Bingbing contains a powerful force that can grant everlasting life. After seeking assistance from his religious advisor and the imperial physician, Louis commissions a young sea captain to search the oceans and capture the mystical creature so he can sacrifice it during twilight and absorb its life's energy. But his sinister plans are further complicated after his illegitimate daughter, Marie, discovers and forms a fragile bond with the mermaid. With a rare solar eclipse now approaching, Louis is hard-pressed to discover where his daughter's true loyalties lie, as he races against time to collect the mermaid's life-giving power. Despite the bad reviews from critics, The King's Daughter is still an enjoyable and pleasant fantasy movie. While the film is not a big-budget blockbuster, its decent and engaging story is enough to keep the audience watching. The movie has a 5.1 rating on IMDb and an 80% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. On number 4, we have Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. It is a 2022 fantasy adventure film directed by David Yates and is the sequel to Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, and the third installment in the Fantastic Beasts film series. The story takes place in the 1930s after the events of the previous film, as dark sorcerer Gellert Grindelwald, who is hungry for ultimate power over the Muggles and the entire wizarding world, continues to plan his next move with the help of his inner circle of loyal supporters. But after noticing how quickly Grindelwald's authority is expanding, Professor Albus Dumbledore entrusts magizoologist Newt Scamander to lead an intrepid group of both wizards and witches on a perilous mission, where they encounter old and new creatures and clash with Grindelwald's expanding army of followers, all while trying to stay one step ahead of the Dark Wizard and beat him at his own game. While it's no secret that this film pales in comparison to the previous entries, I'd still argue that the visuals and immersive cinematography are simply breathtaking. So if you are a die-hard fan of the Harry Potter universe, then ignore the polarized reviews and experience some of the nostalgia of the wizarding world. The movie has a 6.2 rating on IMDb and an 85% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. On number 3, we have Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It is a 2022 fantasy action-adventure film, directed by Jeff Fowler. The story picks up roughly 8 months after the defeat of Dr. Robotnik, as Sonic settles in Green Hills, while he attempts to help the public as a vigilante hero to little success. Tom and Maddie agree to leave Sonic at home while they go on vacation. But no sooner are they gone, when Dr. Robotnik returned from his exile with a new friend, Knuckles, in search of an emerald crystal that has the power to both create and destroy reality itself. But as Dr. Robotnik and Knuckles close in on the crystal's location, Sonic teams up with his own sidekick, Tails, and together they embark on a globe-trotting adventure to find the emerald before it falls into the wrong hands. While the first Sonic movie was surprisingly adequate, this one is even better. The film greatly improves upon its predecessor by expanding on its worlds and dynamic, while its mind-blowing CGI and a more action-adventure plot makes it all the more entertaining. The movie has a 6.5 rating on IMDb and a 96% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. On number 2, we have 3,000 Years of Longing. It is a 2022 fantasy romantic drama film, directed and produced by George Miller, and is based on the short novel The Djinn and the Nightingale's Eye. The main plot centers on Dr. Ali the Binni, who goes on a trip to Turkey for a conference when she encounters a genie who offers her 3 wishes in exchange for his freedom. However, Ali argues and doubts that he's real, and because she's an expert of story and mythology, she is also familiar with all the admonishing tales of desires that have horribly gone wrong, and she accuses the genie of being a trickster. In response to her accusation, the genie defends his case by telling her fantastical stories about his exotic past, while she is eventually lured by impulses and ends up making a wish that shocks them both. Overall, the movie is vibrant and visually stunning, and if you think you like fantasy movies that are combined with philosophical and psychological concept, then this is definitely worth watching. The movie has a 6.7 rating on IMDb and a 73% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. On number 1, we have Black Adam. It is a 2022 superhero fantasy action film, based on the DC Comics character of the same name. The story takes place in present-day Kondak, which has been enslaved by the crime syndicate known as the Intergang, who loots the country's valuable resources. The main story follows an archaeologist, Adriana Thomas, who attempts to find a mysterious artifact with the assistance of her brothers. But when an Intergang force attacks them, and in order to save herself and her brothers, Adriana performs a spell that frees the deadly Teth Adam from his deep slumber, believing him to be Kondak's true defender. After receiving the great powers of the ancient Egyptian gods about 5,000 years prior, Teth Adam was quickly imprisoned after using his power for vengeance. But now that he has been released from his earthly prison, he begins to unleash his own unique version of justice on the modern world, and must take on the Justice Society of America, who came to imprison him once again. With some of the most insane, mind-blowing action scenes, Black Adam ranks as one of the best fast-paced fantasy action movie of 2022. The movie has a 6.6 rating on IMDb and an 89% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. If you enjoyed or found this video helpful, then I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button, and also subscribe to CineBolt if you'd want to see more videos recommending you the best movies and series to watch right now.